Also, education plays a massive role
Yeah.
in, you know, places as you have mentioned. What do you think that links to FGM maybe?
Yeah, so I think it's really key to kind of debunk some of the myths about FGM. So for some cases, or in some communities, people might not know that it's harmful. People might not know that there's different types. We've met women who've undergone FGM who don't know that it happens outside of their community. They don't know the country next to them also practices it. So I think the more information you find out about FGM and the more you realize how harmful it is and kind of break down why it happens, you then come to the conclusion, this is a practice that needs to stop because there's no benefits to it. There's nothing that's positive that's coming out of it.
What kind of communities may practice FGM? That's the big question, because as you can see, there's a group of people who are for it, and then there's a group of people who are against it.
So in terms of communities or countries where FGM takes place, what we know is it happens in at least 29 countries in Africa. So we know it happens in East Africa. So for example, Sudan, where I said I was from, has an 87% prevalence rate. It happens in Egypt, Somalia, Djibouti, Ethiopia, but it also happens in West Africa. So we've got Mali, Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau. Outside of Africa, it also happens in the Middle East. So we know it's practiced in Yemen, amongst Kurdish communities in Iraq and Iran, and also in parts of Southeast Asia. I think also what we know is people in the UK particularly have moved from those countries or those communities, moved to the UK and then brought the practice with them. So it is something that's happening in the UK, and there's girls here who might be at risk of it or might have had FGM happen to them and feel like they can't talk to somebody or they're suffering by themselves.
Physically, emotionally, it has affected me terribly. There are times when I couldn't wash. That's how my depression got to a stage where for days on end I would just lay in bed.
Well, obviously, being a campaign that's trying to bring an end to FGM, what would be your first steps towards that?
The first step really is kind of breaking that silence, raising awareness about it, creating a space where people feel it's okay to talk about. We met a group of young women in Birmingham, and they were all from FGM affected communities. And we came in and we're like, okay, we're going to talk to you guys about FGM, and we started talking about culture and identity, and we moved on to FGM. And there was about 13 of them, there was 4 girls who said FGM happened to them, and they were all friends, and they never told each other that FGM happened to them. And one of the girls was telling me, you have to be really brave and really courageous to say FGM happened to you. It's not something you want to bring up to your friends because you're worried about they're going to judge you, they're going to say something. So if people feel like they can't talk about it, then we're not going to move anywhere. We're going to either pretend it doesn't happen, or it's not affecting us, or it's not an issue. We need to get enough people saying it is an issue, we need to talk about it, these are the things that happened to me, this is why it's harmful, this is why we need to stop it. And I think until that conversation happens, it's not going to end.
Why would you think that FGM doesn't want to be spoken about? Why do you think people might want to just keep quiet and not mention it amongst each other?
Yeah, I think in general these issues are very taboo. Issues about that part of the body, the genitals, issues that relate to physical relationships or intimate relationships are very taboo. So people, and I think also issues around violence or issues around abuse, people think that's a really hard subject, I don't want to talk about it, I'd rather talk about the weather or talk about animals or talk about something that's easy. I also think that these communities where FGM happens, these issues are even more taboo and more secretive. So I know, and this is a rubbish example, when I at the dinner table with my family, I brought up menopause, and I just and my dad got really angry, and he was like, you can't talk about menopause at the dinner table. And I was like, well, it happens to 50% of the population, like this is not a secret, menopause happens. So if he felt, you know, as a Sudanese family member, we're not allowed to talk about something that we know happens, there's no taboo around it, never mind trying to bring up something that is as secretive and as taboo as female genital mutilation.
Early on you said, and you mentioned that girls are worth more if they do have FGM done. What are you referring to this?
So in some communities, when you get married, there's kind of a bride price or a dowry, so you will pay a family member or a father to be able to marry his daughter. So in some communities, how much you pay is dependent on your virginity. So if you're a virgin, I will pay, let's say, 100. If you're not, I might pay less. So what some community members believe is, if a girl has had FGM, this is a way to physically prove that she is a virgin. And therefore, my belief system is she will get more money when she gets married, or the family will get more money when she gets married. What we know as kind of facts is girls can have FGM and not be virgins. Girls cannot have FGM and still be virgins. The two kind of things are not linked. There's no way of saying this will automatically lead to that.
Now, what would you say in the UK if somebody is maybe caught practicing FGM or involved in FGM? What is the sentence for that and the punishment?
So if someone is caught either practicing FGM or assisting someone, aiding someone, helping someone to do it, they could face up to 14 years in prison, and they could face a fine. So it depends on your level of involvement. It depends on whether, are you the person actually, doing the procedure? Were you the person who arranged for flights? Were you the person who gave someone the number of someone who can get the procedure done? Based off of that, they'll then create a sentence for you, or judge a sentence for you.
Do you think that's right? Because obviously, even if you book the flight tickets for a girl to go back to have FGM done, you're still practically affecting her whole life.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you're the one practicing it or if you're the one booking the flight tickets.
Well, I mean, I suppose, I believe that people who practice it should get a higher sentence because it deters them, and also because you could be talking about multiple girls' lives. Like someone who practices it could have done it to 100 girls. I don't think that would be the same as someone who arranged the flight. But like you said, it is. That's one person's life, and so I suppose they should get equal sentences or similar sentences. Yeah, I suppose I know the big challenge comes when you start thinking about parents and what happens with parents who choose to do it, particularly when you're saying a mum who's undergone FGM is the one who might be the one who chooses to practice it to her daughter.
There's just always this nagging pressure on your well-being, and the flashback, the constant thinking, what happened that day, these people, and I love them. I love my aunt, I love everybody, I loved my grandmother, but I don't think they know what it means to have to go through this later on. They say it's a good thing, but nothing was good for me.
In America, there is a law saying that under the age of 18, girls cannot have FGM done. However, if you're 18 or above and you decide that, yes, this is what I want, you can have it done. Is it the same in the UK or is it different?
So the UK law does not have age of consent. So in the UK law, a girl is the same as a woman. So if you are 12, you can't choose to have FGM. If you're 18, you can't choose to have FGM. If you're 35, you cannot choose to have FGM. And the reason behind why they did the law this way was they felt that there's a lot of community pressure. So
would you say America kind of overlooked the problem and just said, okay, if you're 18, you can decide, whereas UK thought about it?
I'm, 27, 28 years old. If my mum tells me to do something, I'm still going to do it because, culturally, that's how I was brought up, that I must listen to my elders, I must listen to my family. So I think it's a lot, I think maybe the US might need to kind of revise or think about the implications of having a law where there is an age limit.
If, for example, I might have been worried about having FGM done to me, or if my friend, where can I go to find support?
Yeah, so in terms of support, there's a lot of FGM organizations that are local community organizations that can provide support. So Forward is one of those organizations. We're an African women's charity, we provide support. But even kind of, I suppose, easier than that is the NSPCC has a helpline The helpline is 24 hours, it's free, it's anonymous. You can call them up and be like, I'm worried about this, I, you know, have a really hard time with the bathroom. Can you tell me where I can go for support? And they'd be able to tell you where you can get medical attention, where you can get care.
Now, I think a lot of children may be afraid to call you guys because their parents might find out.
Yeah.
What's the situation on that? Will it be done confidentially, or will parents be involved?
So with the NSPCC line, that is anonymous, so you don't have to provide your name.
Okay.
It is confidential. The only time that parents will get involved is if people are worried about something bad or something harmful happening to a young person.
Okay.
If there's a risk. You know, and I think the challenge is any professional you speak to, if there's a risk, they're going to have a responsibility to make sure they prevent that risk from happening or prevent that harm from happening. Also, alternatively, you know, if they call forward or call an FGM organization and you're very clear and say, I don't want my mum to find out because X, Y, Z, they'll be able to try to negotiate something, because I think particularly for community organizations, they come with an understanding of the cultural context of FGM and how kind of young people might feel or interact within their community. And so have that understanding to try to smooth things over and try to do it in a way that's sensitive and appropriate.
Well, it's been wonderful talking to you, Saria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Farhat. It was amazing.
In conclusion, I'm sure that all of us have learned something today, but it is now a very important time to be aware of FGM. It has been banned in the UK. However, some young children are taken abroad, unfortunately, to have FGM done. If you have concerns about yourself or a friend, you can report anonymously and help will be available. So make sure you and all your friends are safe. I will be back next fortnight with exclusive access to a very special event. Don't miss out. I'll see you next time.